Art is the lie that enables us to realize the truth. Pablo Picasso. Bending, not breaking. A segue episode. And welcome back to Bending, Not Breaking. I'm Sunshine Mayfield.
This is Ben Pruitt.
And we are here together, doing shows together again.
Stuck in the middle with you.
There's only two of us. Who's stuck in the middle?
No, we're stuck in the middle of finishing up the Dragon Prince Season 3.
All those, yep.
And then
Jumping into Korra Season 3.
That's right.
But we're not doing it just yet. But soon. We've been working on it. Guests are lined up. We've got plans. Recording is starting.
Yep.
We're making moves.
Yep.
It's coming soon.
All the things.
All the things. But we wanted to do a little something.
You said but.
Yes.
Sorry.
But
You said it again.
we are going to talk a little bit something different today. Just nothing big, but first off, thank you to all of our listeners. That's probably the biggest thing.
Absolutely.
Patreon subscribers, the listeners, to those that have reviewed or liked or subscribed on anywhere you listen.
That's right.
We can't thank you enough, because this is stuff that we enjoy doing, and we get to do it because of you.
We do.
That's super. We're super gracious for that, and wanted to lift that up before we get started with anything else, because y'all are the best.
And we're also really grateful for all the people that join us as guests and take the time out of their days to be a part of this project. And that's always really cool when we get to talk to like really spicy people, right? We get to talk to voice actors, we get to talk to authors, we get to talk to doctors. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on.
So much. We're loving it.
Yeah.
We're absolutely loving it. But today we're doing something a little bit different. So, yes, we are recording. Yes, we are getting ready for Bending Not Breaking Season 6, which is Season 3 of Korra. And so we are working on that. But right now, we really just wanted to kind of dive into, like, what has been filling our cup as we haven't been watching Avatar and Korra. What are the things, the mediums, the arts that have been filling us that maybe we can recommend to others, or maybe just talk about in general and say, hey, this is what we've been enjoying lately.
Yeah.
And so just one of those little episodes.
I like enjoying things.
Little segue episode.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a few different genres. We're going to dive into some visual media, some written media, some other things.
Some game played.
Games.
I guess that's still a visual.
Games. That's like interactive
media.
Yeah. But I guess it's all interactive. Anyway, moral of the story is we're gonna kind of spread the bandwidth, go a little bit of here, a little bit of there, and any of the things we talk about, you are welcome to sponsor us. We accept.
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. All right. Where do you want to start?
Oh, I don't know.
Let's pick a genre first.
Let's go shows.
Great.
What's a show you've been enjoying?
Aside from the Dragon Prince,
Yes.
which is an obvious thing, but I am getting hyped for all the
new content
that is getting very much hinted towards.
Season 4 is almost here.
Lots of cool. I mean, I saw a hint for one of the showrunners was looking at like content for season 6 of the show, and they were like, "Man, I'm looking at some of this stuff," and I'm like, "Man, I'm ready for season 4 here."
We're about to get shows are just
ramping back up,
but not even just that, but like the quality of television over the last few years has certainly just increased, and the amount of content has certainly increased,
which is a problem,
and arguably beating out like movies in quality. But like we're about to get Umbrella Academy season 3,
really excited for that.
Season 2's
really
coming.
Excited for that.
We're getting Miss Marvel on Disney Plus. We've already gotten a bunch of MCU projects that have come out this past year. She-Hulk's been announced and a trailer's been put out for.
And Thor: Love and Thunder.
Thor: Love and Thunder for the movies. Yep, that's right. So like the content is coming. More and more of it is happening. They've signed on some shows that we're about to talk to today for second and third seasons. We're getting a new Lord of the Rings show. We're getting a new
lots of stuff happening.
We're getting a new Game of Thrones show, so a lot's happening, a lot of content.
Shadow and Bone has a new season coming out, I think, too.
For those of you who watched that,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so what is something that you've been enjoying?
Yeah,
currently
I
that's
want
been
to.
filling
We're
your
we're gonna
cup?
go straight to the WinCon here and go straight to Heartstopper on Netflix.
I'm only 3 episodes in, and I love it.
It is.
It's so nice, and I wish we had the show 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah. And
Right?
I wish we
Like,
had it like many years before
how
that.
many people would have benefited from this
Yeah.
show 15 years ago?
I saw
30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
I saw a tweet about it that was like, essentially was, am I in therapy because I wish I had Heartstopper sooner, or because I went to see it because I watched Heartstopper, right?
Right.
and it's I think that requires a little bit of nuance to explain, because this is a show about queer joy.
yes.
And most of the time when you see minorities, minority identities, period, in media, often surrounds the trauma of those identities.
Yes.
And it focuses on really not great content. And by that I mean, like, it focuses on abuse, it focuses on exclusion, it focuses on all these things. And Heartstopper like pauses that narrative, and there are still things that are not great.
There's
in
still
this
conflict
show.
in the
There's
show.
still conflict, but the conflict is, it doesn't feel traumatizing.
Right.
And it's not to say that it isn't or couldn't be to those who experience it, but it's not nearly as focused on the trauma as it is focused on the joy.
Which is really nice.
And it's just so beautiful. And it's like, I used to think, are there shows nowadays that can exist and like they are positive and good after Game of Thrones? Because Game of Thrones like guts you for how bad and negative it happens, and all the death and all the things that occur. It's like, it's the shock value of killing everyone.
The Red Wedding still gives me
right,
nightmares, yeah.
and after that, I have felt like there's been this content surge of like just more and more destruction and death, and like, let me just rip everything out from under the viewer. And Heartstopper just flips the narrative and says, I'm gonna give you exactly what you want, and I want you to see queer joy. And it's just beautiful. Like, you laugh, you cry. It is full of incredible everything you ever wanted from.
So I should finish it.
Yeah. I highly recommend it to everybody.
Yeah.
Highly recommend. Yeah.
Must watch.
Yeah. And Alice Oseman writes a comic that it is based off of, and you can buy those comics as well. And after it released, it became a #1 bestseller within a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Once people caught on, it's
Positive material, joyful material.
Yeah.
Is needed.
Yeah. And I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Kind of in a similar vein, I've watched a lot of Abbott Elementary leading into this year.
Abbott Elementary.
Yep, similar to like an Office or Parks and Rec. It is a mockumentary that takes place in a lowly funded school in Philly.
Okay.
And it is filled with similar joy, and it's about a low-funded school and underpaid teachers who really care about what they do, and the chaos that ensues when you're working with children, and the social commentary around what it means to be an underfunded school, in underfunded teachers, and all that comes with that. And it is it is really nice. It is really funny. It is very much an enjoyable watch from start to finish, and the cast is great. It is very much around race relations as well, and I just think overall it is a really solid show that everyone should be watching, especially if you work or have kids. I think that it is a very genuine look
work
at that.
with.
Yes. So Abbott Elementary is totally worth watching. Quinta Bronson is the creator and showrunner of that, and she's just been phenomenal.
If I were to ask, like, what's one thing that you feel like you are walking away with from watching that show, what would that thing what are you walking away with?
Yeah, I think it's I think right now we get a lot of like teachers don't want to do their jobs, or they're making my kids wear masks. Well, not so much anymore, but there was a lot of like anger, like geared towards teachers, and especially in a time where it has been incredibly tough on everyone.
Everyone.
But students and teachers, particularly over the last 2 years, and so I think it just is. It is an eye opening for maybe others to say like, oh, maybe people are out there doing their best and like making things happen, and but it also shows a spectrum of teachers who've been around for 30 years and might be a little bit jaded, and teachers who are brand new and like bright and bubbly and ready to take on the challenge. And so there's a lot that goes on with it, but I think for me it feels, one, working with kids personally, like it feels relevant. But overall, I think it just kind of speaks to just kind of really like a time capsule maybe of like where we're at.
Interesting.
But also,
okay,
I think it's really enjoyable.
That's
worth
compelling.
Watching. Yeah.
That's compelling. Yeah, and this is one thing where I don't necessarily feel like it fits in this vein of you should watch it for the good that you're pulling out of it, but I've been binging Ozark recently, and I would say you should not watch that.
It's more on the R-rated side of things.
Yeah, that's super R-rated. But I find it very compelling. It's more compelling for the Game of Thrones reasons, where it's like throwing everything on its head, and it's like this is
twists and turns and
high suspense, and the whole time.
Who's gonna die?
I feel my blood pressure very high while watching it, but I'm also very compelled to keep watching. So that's just I will lift that up just because I have been entertained by it. But other than that, like, it's very good. It's just also
I've never watched
terrifying.
Ozark. People love it.
Yeah, drug cartel, scary. That's what I've learned. Scary, bad. Don't say yes.
That is a lot to unpack when you talk about like all of that in life and the way. Yeah. What a time.
Yeah.
What a time. I'm midway through Our Flag Means Death as well, and if you don't know,
Our Flag Means
that is about the gentleman pirate.
I've never heard about this.
It's an HBO show.
Okay.
Very dry British humor, but it is about the gentleman pirate who left his life of luxury to like go be a pirate.
Okay.
And his band of misfit crew. But like Edward Teach shows up at some point, and it's very funny. It's got Taika Waititi in it. There's a very large cast. Hodor from Game of Thrones is in it. Very funny, very clever. Has a lot of heart though, which is really nice as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, for those who like the dry humor of life, that's been an enjoyable watch for me as well.
Neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I am also a big anime fan, so I'm diving into several of those at a time. And the three that I'm going to lift up are interesting, and they're interesting for various reasons, and they all have their complications. But especially because often anime is created with a male lens in mind, which definitely makes it
problematic at times.
Can be pretty problematic. But if you can like put that aside, it's really,
or like recognize
really,
it.
Yeah,
not like ignore it, but like
exactly
recognize that that's happening as it's happening.
Yeah, be aware.
Yeah,
notice, and I continue watching. It's like I feel that is like a guilty pleasure in a way, not the male lens, but the show in general. Anyway, My Dress Up Darling is what it's called in English. And I watched the first episode, and I was instantly hooked. Like, it's just a really compelling couple of characters where this is a really introverted, very focused on his art young man who really cares about making dolls. And it's super cool. Like you can see how passionate he is about art and painting and creating, and he ends up like sewing and really caring about it, and he finds someone that really likes to cosplay, and she kind of stumbles upon him making something, and she's like, you have to make this dress for me. And it's just this really extroverted, really energetic high school girl with this really introverted, passionate about art boy that's just like, oh, that's a really cool dynamic. And I was instantly hooked, and I binged season 1. It was really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
What else? What are your other two that you said you're about to lift up?
Yeah, there's one that's currently running. It's Spy X Family. It's lots of really interesting characters. The main character is a spy, and then he has to adopt a daughter, and
Oh.
daughter ends up being a telepath, and he has to feign being in a family. So he also has to find a wife. And she ends up being an assassin, and nobody knows except the daughter's a telepath and knows both.
You just gave a lot of information away.
That's within like the first 2 episodes.
Oh,
so,
great.
Like that's you learn that very quickly. So it's super cool. I don't know where it's gonna go because it's still coming out, and I've only seen the first couple episodes. But
Nice.
really neat. And then lastly, Ranking of Kings.
Okay.
Ranking of Kings is about a deaf and young boy who is heir to the throne, and is his older brother, actually his younger brother that ends up growing bigger than he is, ends up usurping that, and it's the story of his journey to become king. And I'm through with about a season of that, and that's super neat also. And watching a mute character in an anime is always kind of neat, deaf character. So I offer that as something that's kind of heartwarming, or heartwarming rather.
Yeah.
If you don't tear up every now and then watching him deal with his hurdles, then it's like, oh. Anyway, those are my 3.
So we've got shows that are heartwarming. We've got shows that are less heartwarming.
Yep.
You can watch Heartstopper and Ozark on Netflix. You can watch Abbott Elementary on Hulu.
And I watched the other 3 on Crunchyroll.
There you go, Crunchyroll. And then Our Flag Means Death is on HBO Max, so that's where you can watch those shows if you're interested. But we've been enjoying them.
Yeah, and we accept sponsorship from all of them.
Yeah.
But seriously, sponsor us.
Sure. Yes. Any streaming service that wants to pay us.
Yeah.
Would love it.
Absolutely. All right.
Games.
Those are my shows.
Yeah. Let's go games.
Games.
Yeah.
So I've been having the nostalgia kick recently with games. So I've been playing Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
And I started out with a randomizer where it randomizes all the items. And
that makes it more difficult.
It makes
I would
it
assume,
much
because
more
you're getting
difficult.
items. Sometimes it makes it easy, right? Like you get the
well, yes, and right. Sometimes you get the
most powerful
light arrow that helps you defeat everything in one hit. But if you don't have some way to have fire, you can't complete half the dungeons.
Right.
And so it's one of those things where I really love the puzzle of it, but having done it multiple times and not being able to finish because it's so random that you can't finish it. I started replaying it for real without any sort of randomizer, and just going through. And this is a game where it's a 3-day period, and if you let the 3 days end without beating the game, then the moon falls and destroys everything. And so
fun.
You have a chance to control time, go back in time, and fix things over the course of 3 days again and again and again. And it's just really a fascinating look at this microcosm of Link's world, where you get to see time happen again and again and again, and redo things and have a chance to do it again and practice. And it can be really frustrating because you get to day 3 and you've been working on this really long, complicated thing, and you mess up on day 3, but you have a chance to fail and restart. And it's just a really interesting look back at that game. It is way ahead of its time, because that was a 90s game that just turned out to be super incredible, and it's really probably one of the better Zelda games that has ever come out.
Nice.
It's really cool.
I'm playing MLB The Show because I like baseball.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
It's fine. It's a baseball game.
Yeah. So I'm curious, just for funsies, you have a relationship with the television and your game.
Makes it sound weird.
Well, I'm not done yet. In which you often yell or get high energy in your game. Like, tell me about your response to like you will fight the television sometimes. Yeah. So tell me about that.
I've gotten better as I've gotten older, but yeah, you'll still hear me mumble things under my breath. Like, I just sometimes I
Lots
say
of expletives
based off of X and Y, Z should happen.
Yeah,
So
sure.
why didn't Z happen? And that's when I get frustrated. Like, I did X, I did Y. Why no Z? Right?
Yeah,
And so,
why no Z?
Like, and so I think that's where my frustration typically lies, where I'm like, I know what like, I did this thing.
You did everything right.
Yes. Why didn't this then happen? And that's where typically my frustration happens. And typically, maybe I didn't do X and Y the way that it was supposed to, but in my head at the time,
or the way
I'm
you
like,
thought you were supposed
exactly.
to. Yeah.
So that's where it's frustrating, where it's just like, or like, with an example of MLB the Show, you don't really have a choice of like what team you're put on as a player.
So you just get drafted.
So you just get drafted, and so like right now I'm on a very bad baseball team.
Why'd you let that happen?
I didn't have a choice, and so like I am the best hitter in the American League on my baseball game because
of course you are.
It's a video game. But my team is consistently in last, and so like I lose all the time, and so that's where you're like, but I can't get traded off of a team because there's like a 6-year contract and all this fun stuff.
Why'd you sign a 6-year contract?
I didn't. That is literally how the league works. Like, you have to stay with the team that drafts you for X amount of years unless they trade you or other things take place. It's like Magic. It's like, this is the rule unless a card says otherwise. But
Magic the Gathering,
typically you have to do that. So like, those are the little things where you're just like, if things are out of my control that like make me lose, I dislike that. It's like getting hit with like 3 blue shells, right? Like,
yeah, Mario Kart, man, that's the worst. So
but that's typically where I land.
It's interesting because I often question, like, he gets mad every time. Why? What does he enjoy about that game? Like, because it sounds like you're angry at it most of the time, but something about it's compelling.
Yeah, I've gotten better about if I get angry, but I'm typically pretty good. Yes, 20-year-old me, much worse. And I don't play that many games in general, so I pretty much only do things. But like I like baseball and I like playing.
Hockey.
I like hockey and I like sports games. Those are typically my go-tos, and so I enjoy playing those in the achievement. But I also don't like not achieving, and so when I think that in those moments it's. You just get frustrated, and it's easy to be frustrated in an inanimate object. Like,
of course,
like that's an easier way to like. I don't actually like if I lose a baseball game in real life, right? Like that's typically not my response.
Yeah,
of
course.
Oh, expletive, but yeah, so that's why.
Yeah, I mean, and then I guess I've also been playing old Pokemon games and thinking about like why do I keep returning to these games? And I don't think it's because like. They're incredible games.
Sometimes they're mindless, so sometimes it's just easy to turn off.
I also think it's the comfort of returning to something I know really. Like I have the dungeons memorized from when I was 10 years old and did them again and again and again. And it's just being able to. It's not just the mindless part of it. It's the. I've been reading about. Might go into books after this.
Yeah.
Been reading about a lot of trauma recently and reading about memory and reading about how the body remembers things.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the reason the body keeps the score, right?
Yes.
And thinking about how when we played these things originally, for me at least, these are both games that I played when I was younger, they were the memory package that these games are contained in are very positive and very like, this is a really good memory. And so part of I think my body craves playing them again because I want that memory package to be remembered. Because when I do play them again, it makes my body think that I'm there again. And it kind of tricks my body into thinking that this is a really good time and a positive thing. And I'm having a good time. And I think that's the more I become aware of that, the more I'm like, oh, my body's craving this. And that's really interesting for me to kind of put into conversation with the games that I'm playing. And so I note that.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always found myself attracted to games where there's progression or like improvement over time, right? So like whether it's sports games and you control a player who's like you slowly develop skills over time, or if it's a game like Final Fantasy where it's you're slowly like you're giving yourself gems and you're growing and your skills are getting better and you want to complete the entire thing. Like those things are always kind of speak to me, but a lot of those have repetitive natures to them, right? And so there is a little bit of like, this is what I'm doing right now. All right, Dad, yay! But then in that, still there are times where like I didn't achieve the thing. That's dumb.
Yeah.
My go-to line is always like, "What? Why would? It's not even fun to play if you make it that like. Why make it that hard? Right? Like, that's always like the.
And here we are playing it again.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep playing it anyways. Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody plays games, but we thought we'd invite people into that conversation too. What's next?
I guess books. We've talked a little bit of books. Yeah, we read. We listen to audiobooks and we read.
All right. I'm gonna start with the less
fun read.
No, I was gonna start with the less intense one.
Start with intense, and then let's get lighthearted afterwards.
Okay, cool. Instead, I will start with Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Is what I have been in currently. Well, actually, I'm reading 2 books concurrently, but I'll talk about Pedagogy of the Oppressed first. It's really, this one's hard to read for me. Not because it's like literally hard to read, but because I'm reading it and I'm realizing that I am participating still in so many of the things that make me an oppressor, and it's really kind of heartbreaking that it's happening, right? And it's happening without my knowledge, even so subconsciously that it's just happening throughout my daily life. I read a quote in it that talks about education that I thought was really compelling. So it kind of breaks down what education is. So it's either a function to facilitate the integration of a younger generation into the logic of the present system and bring about conformity, or it is the means by which people deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of the world. And I'm sitting here thinking about the education system and all the people that are in school, and I am sitting here thinking about K through 12, and I am sitting like that. It's a conformity system, and it just makes me furious because there's nothing I can do right now about that. Right? It feels like it's so out of my hands that I'm left feeling helpless, and so I'm kind of grappling with my feelings of helplessness reading this book, and knowing that there are things I can literally do and make sure that I'm voting and making sure that I'm participating in the things that I can do. But as I read it, it is making me feel helpless in a way, which is hard. Yeah.
That is tough. And always good to learn and...
Oh, necessary.
Yeah, necessary reading.
Yeah.
One of the books that I just finished is one by a friend of the podcast, Andre Henry. Name of his new books. He was on season 3, the final episode. Yep. So, Nonviolent Struggle was his lens.
Sozin's Comet, part 4.
We talked about. And he wrote a book, All the White Friends I Couldn't Keep. And it's a lot of verbatim conversations about him and friends growing up and the conversations they would have and the experiences that they would share together that inevitably led his white friends to no longer speak with him, or boundaries that he set. And so it's a lot of storytelling from Andre. He's a great storyteller. I think it speaks to a lot of language that we see commonly get used, or that I've used, or where I'm like, oh, I didn't realize the harm that statement holds behind it. And so it's there's a lot of knowledge that comes with him sharing his personal experiences. So it's less academic in a sense, but it is very much just kind of like, here are the stories of my past and what I've pulled from them from Andre's perspective, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend picking up All the White Friends I Couldn't Keep.
Yeah, I actually have 2 copies. I bought one, and then I won a raffle with Andre's Instagram where I got a signed copy.
So you're gonna keep.
And he wrote Flameo in the inscription. So no big deal or anything, but thanks, Andre. You're a big yeah, so we're currently trying to get Andre back to talk about his book. So hopefully he'll be able to join us
At some point, yeah.
At some point, yeah.
But totally worth the read.
But yeah. So highly recommend that. I have not had a chance to read it yet, but it is next on my list.
I've had a lot of school readings.
I have. I have.
Yeah.
The next other book that's a little on the heavier side for me is The Wisdom of Your Body by Hilary McBride. It's about trauma, and it's about how trauma lives in the body, but it's not just about trauma. It's also just about getting to know our bodies and befriending our bodies, and not just because of trauma, but also because of how our culture separates mind and body and likes to say that we are a mind and soul and our body is an other, something that we can control, and it rather than thinking that it is us.
Right.
Our body is us. Right? And our mind is a part of our body, right? And so who we are necessarily is affected by our bodies, and our emotions are a factor of our body. And it's just really, really informative and really beautifully written, and just I can't recommend it enough for anyone who's interested in getting in touch more with themselves. Highly recommend.
And she's a great speaker and
so dynamic. Yeah,
she's great, and she's done several podcasts. You can find
Other People's Problems.
Just Google her name.
Fabulous. Yeah.
The next one I read is a horror book.
Ooh, I'm out.
Scary book.
No, thank you.
It's less scary as like scary, but more like creepy body stuff. So it's a book called Tender is the Flesh. And it is about a dystopian universe. Maybe
what is it about the word flesh
that like makes your own flesh kind of like tingle?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. This is by the author Agustina Bastarrica, is I believe how you pronounce that name. Sorry if I botched it. And Tender is Flesh takes place in a dystopian universe where meat consumption has become impossible. Whether it has been and I think specifically in the story, it is due to like bacteria that has found its way into like red meat, pork, things like that.
Got it. Okay.
And so we see a hierarchy of them starting to eat people.
Oh.
And so it is very much about consumption and about classism and about capitalism in general. And so it is very graphic and grotesque at parts. And so some might look at it as very like, this is about meat specifically.
Yeah.
Like, I think it is way more layered than that. I think it tackles a lot more content than that. It has a very interesting kind of like ending moment that is very eye-opening, but it is very intriguing about how this book navigates. It specifically follows one man who owns a packaging plant for this stuff, and he inherited it from his father, and so it takes place from there. So very, very R-rated, very gory, and very good.
Sounds like something I will never read.
Touch with. Yeah. Ben will never touch it with a 10-foot pole.
No.
But again, that's called Tender is the Flesh.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go towards not horror, if that's okay.
Yeah, my next book is way more uplifting.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Mine too. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the romance realm. I have read
a little romance.
Yeah. I have read this book several times now, but I am rereading it again. Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston.
Okay.
It is phenomenal.
Not like in a sense of like guilty pleasure phenomenal.
No,
like
it is
just
good.
Like romance novel phenomenal. Is that like a different layer of like trashy romance novel? Like
this is
good
not
or
a trashy romance
novel?
Like,
this is just
this
good.
is a romance. This is a queer love romance novel that imagines a different future post Obama.
All right.
And so the main character is F. Sotus, so first son of the United States. And he is a mixed Mexican American whose mother is the president, and super cool.
Yeah.
And it is an enemies to lovers romance in which he is enemies with the Prince of England. And so it is a really beautiful enemies to lovers romance. There's a lot of incredible commentary on politics. There's a lot of really cool commentary on what it means to be queer in the United States and queer in England and queer in positions of privilege. There's a lot of commentary that is worth grappling with. So, one, it's really cool, but also it's really cool. So you should read it if you are into romance novels.
Oh,
I recommend it,
nice.
and it has a little bit of spice to it.
A little bit. My final book is I prepped for Miss Marvel coming out on Disney Plus here in the next 2 weeks, and I read the Miss Marvel opening run from 2014
Are
by
these comics, or is this
G. Willow Wilson. Yes,
Okay,
yeah. I guess you could say graphic novel, but yes,
Got
individual comics that have been placed in very large and longer,
Yeah.
volumes. So Miss Marvel is really good.
Oh, good. I'm excited.
So it makes me more excited for the show. Not that I wasn't already. I was pretty jazzed for it to begin with. But reading the books, it's very clever, very witty. But it's about a girl wanting to be a superhero and thinking that she needs to be, the strong, blonde, white superhero, and realizing that that's not necessarily the case. And so there's a lot of learning that happens, and a lot of
Nice.
just being a teenager in high school and dealing with parents who care about you, but also being a kid who thinks that they need to save the world. And so there's a lot that comes with that, and it's super sweet and totally worth reading. So that's the 2014 run of Miss Marvel. I highly recommend it. I'm currently reading on Marvel Unlimited. That is the online kind of subscription that you can use to get a hold of that comic if you'd like it.
I'm super interested in watching the show.
Yeah, I think I did. So in full transparency, I didn't love Moon Knight. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I agree.
There were aspects of it that I really
fine.
liked, and there were aspects of it I thought were fine. I felt the same way about Hawkeye. I liked Multiverse of Madness, but I am really excited for Miss Marvel. I think it's going to be a little bit more children's playful. I expect it to be a little bit more like Friday night sitcom, like
teen oriented.
and I think it has the capacity to be a lot of fun and also have a lot of heart. And I love things with heart. I love things that fill my heart with joy, and the comics certainly did. So I hope that the show is able to do the same thing.
Yeah, me too.
That was my last book.
Cool. Mine is Seatmate, which is an Audible only.
Is it a like a audio production?
It is.
Yeah.
But it's called Seatmate by Cara Bastone. It's actually the third book, but the stories aren't connected. All three of them are like really lovely 6-hour stories. Like fully immersed the whole time. I love the characters. They're super there's not very like the problems aren't problems with the people, it's problems with the situations that they're in. And so it's just really heartwarming and full of joy and full of like the tension is like the romantic tension versus like uncomfortable tension.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really appreciate a book that can do that, and I think this one does it really well. I guess a production that does it really well, and the actors are done. They sound. It's just really good.
I've done a couple Star Wars does a couple of like audiobooks that are similar storytelling to that, and when the production on some of those is just absolutely through the roof and really allows you to sink into the story. And so sometimes when they do this like audio productions, they can be really spot on.
I think I've decided that I really like that as a format.
Yeah.
Like
fictional podcasts have been a thing.
Well,
there have been some of those that have been very good.
Well, 36 Questions.
Yeah,
right.
That's an
was
example of one.
Probably one of my favorite musicals.
Yeah,
it's so good, and it's just a 2-person audio musical.
Well, sometimes it works out. I don't know if it's just like the fact there's not necessarily a narrator a lot of times with that, but it's just like sometimes it's just, and sometimes it is, right? Like you have a narrator who's going through and being like,
Yeah,
this is
sometimes.
happening, and
Yeah.
then you have the characters coming in and doing things. But yeah, I think that's a fun way to
Super cool.
experience. It's just another variation of podcast and or audiobooks that I think
Yeah.
people are starting to get a hold of, and it really like harks back to like old
Storytelling.
radio stories, right? The ones where it was,
yeah, like
when
War
they
of the
War of the
Worlds.
Worlds. Hopefully, no one's believing that it's real, but yes,
Yeah.
those types of storytellings where it kind of harks back to those. So it's kind of
Yeah.
cyclical in that way, but it works and people enjoy them. So yeah,
I certainly do. All right, that's my last book.
yeah, movies.
Movies.
What
you
you
should go
watch?
first.
Have you
because
watched
I only have
anything?
one.
Okay, good. I'll go first. One of the first ones I watched that I've really enjoyed this year is The Northman from Robert Eggers.
I have heard of this movie.
It is the
Vikings, right?
Yes. It is a folk tale that is said to inspire Hamlet.
Okay.
It is the folk tale that is said to inspire William Shakespeare in writing Hamlet.
So somebody's killing somebody.
It's Hamlet. It's Lion King. The story is there. You know what the story is going to be. It is gorgeous to look at. It is gorgeous to watch. It is very. It also is graphic. Like, be prepared. But I think there's a lot in it. I think there are better movies out there. You probably I would give The Lion King probably a higher rating because it's The Lion King.
Because it's incredible.
It's got the songs, man. There's
Like
no
10 out of-
singing in this movie.
Is it a 10 out of 10 movie?
0 singing. The Lion King?
Yeah.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah. It's for sure up there. The live action.
No.
I like Seth Rogen
No.
and Billy Eichner as Timon and
Definitely
Pumbaa.
not.
I thought they were great.
I
Um,
don't think they deserve a 10.
No, but I enjoyed that version of it. I didn't dislike it. Yeah. So, I think it's one of those movies where I wouldn't be surprised if like some people walk out of it and are like, "Yeah, masculinity, yeah." But I had a very opposite reaction. It feels like it's a very kind of like warning,
Commentary
like
on.
to that. Like it is very much. It very much hints that like maybe that's not the way. I would say Robert Eggers typically writes movies and shows them in a way that's like, this just is. You decide how to like it.
Yeah.
This is it.
It's
This
not
is
making a judgment.
it isn't making a judgment, but I think you like walking out of it. I'm sitting there going like,
Ooh.
that was a cautionary tale. Well, Hamlet is right. Like Hamlet is a tragic story, and so that's all right there. And so I think, but I really enjoyed watching it, and I thought it was pretty solid. So that was one that I enjoyed looking at. Probably want to see in screen. It's still in theaters in some places, but it's probably on its way out soon. But if you can watch it in theaters, it's probably the way to experience it.
Nice.
It is certainly. So this is the same director who made The Witch and The Lighthouse.
You're naming movies that I haven't
Great.
seen.
Those are very strange and like cerebral, like surreal storytelling methods. This is probably the most approachable one and straightforward, and it has a little bit of that in it, but it's pretty tame comparatively. So I think that's why it had a bigger showing of people seeing it. But yeah,
Got it.
The Northman.
Yeah.
What you got?
I watched Sneakerella on Disney Plus.
What'd you think?
It was super fine. There were moments that I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then there were moments where I was like, I don't like this at all. I was not a fan of the music. That might just be my personal preference, but I found it to be somewhat lackluster for me. I just found it like it was. I don't love lots and lots of auto-tune, and it felt like it was that. I didn't. I thought the two like stepbrothers were. They were mean,
Yes.
which they're meant to be, but it was like a stretch for them to be that mean, and
Okay.
so it felt a little like incredibly, not a little, a
So
lot.
it's a very exaggerated storytelling.
It's very
Hyperbolic
exaggerating,
in the way, yeah.
hyperbolic storytelling. Like it felt like a stretch the way that the dad, like was bossing the main character around. It really felt like a stretch for the apology to go through at the end. Spoiler alert. But moral of the story is, I liked the concept. I enjoyed watching it. If you don't really see yourself watching it, I don't think you're gonna miss much. Like,
You're not saying put it on the list.
no,
Yeah.
no.
All right.
But that was my experience.
That was the movie. Yep. That's the only movie you've watched in 2022.
Maybe. Like I don't watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I probably watched another movie at some point, but I've forgotten it. So
when did you watch Spider-Man No Way Home? After the New Year, right?
I really liked that movie. That was great. Yeah, highly recommend.
Very nostalgic.
Yeah.
A lot of pull in.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I assume I watched that after the New Year.
I think you did.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yep.
What a time.
What a time.
My only other big watch that I would highly recommend that I think is if you're in the movie lanes of Twitter or anything else you've probably heard of, and it's Everything Everywhere All at Once by the Daniels.
Where can I watch that?
Theaters. Yep, gotta go.
I've seen too many people say that it was too good for me not to see it.
10 out of 10 for me. Not to overhype it, but it's when we talk about a movie that has heart and soul, but it is dumb and fun and exciting and well choreographed and looks amazing, but also speaks a lot to parent relationships with their children and feeling like you're losing your children, and at the same time children who want to be authentically seen as themselves in the eyes of their parents and others around the world. Like, it just so much heart, so much relatability. It is also just like there are fight scenes in it that are just beautifully choreographed. This is filmed by the Daniels, who did Swiss Army Man, if you remember that movie.
Sure don't.
That was Daniel Radcliffe as a dead body that gets used as a Swiss Army knife, essentially. At one point it's a jet ski, and at one point he helps him. It's like this guy in the wood finds Daniel Radcliffe's body and uses it to like survive in the woods.
That sounds morbid.
It's very weird. It is very charming. It is very funny. It's a lot of fart jokes. And this movie is that times 10, like very out there, very funny, but a lot of heart. And, is absolutely stunning. And the best multiversal movie that we've seen this year.
That's period. A statement.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's real good.
Yeah. So you also saw Multiverse of Madness.
I did.
And you're saying that this one was like...
Yeah, I also watched No Way Home, and this is better than Spider-Man No Way Home.
Wow.
Yeah, very good.
I enjoyed that. That was great.
No,
well, now I have to see it even more.
This was a movie where a rock made me cry. Like, I'm not kidding. Like a rock that doesn't speak. Just, it was beautiful.
Wow. That's on my list.
Yep, put it on the list.
Very exciting.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is also A24's highest domestic earning movie ever now at this point.
Look at that.
So a lot of people have seen it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, great. That's my list.
It's a lot of content.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to something to do between now and the next week or two when we finally put out more Avatar and Korra content, like, do all of those.
Yeah. Or not.
Yeah, no, all of them. Everything.
I didn't recommend
everywhere.
all of it.
All at once.
Ooh, bold.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's the main chunk of our episode.
Yeah.
We typically do a devotion.
We do.
And gratitude and things like that at the end of the episode. And so I think what are you called to do in terms of, we just talked about all this media content.
Yeah.
What are you called to do with that information?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm in a mixture of two kind of things.
Yeah.
One is I'm really vibing with the book, The Wisdom of Your Body, that is calling me back to like listen to my body and to do what it asks of me. So it goes against, it really is calling me to do things and pay attention to like intuitive eating, intuitive exercise, intuitive things where I know that I want this and then I talk myself out of it. And then I go through this back and forth. And what I'm really looking for is, how do I begin to really pay attention to what my body is telling me and say, oh, it makes perfect sense that you're responding this way. I haven't eaten in 6 hours. Thank you for giving me this message. And I'm really being called to that because I think that would help me respond better to pedagogy of the pressed, right? When what's going on in my body right now as I read this? What is that telling me? How do I respond to that? it makes sense that you're feeling this way, right? And I'm really feeling called to listen to my
Nice.
body and
Yeah.
to really pay attention. That's what I'm feeling called to do.
Yeah. It really is one of these things where we take in this information, and then what do you do with it? You know what I mean? And
Exactly,
so when we read
right?
these things, we read books of learning, and we learn from these authors or these shows, and we do nothing with that information, then what was the point of learning it? And so for us to be able to take something out of the media that we consume is important, and then be able to act on that. And I think it's what we
Yeah.
try to do with the show. That doesn't mean you can't consume media for the sake of just like, I want to consume something joyful, and
Yeah.
I'm going to let it be
Absolutely.
that. But I also want to always push back on people who are like, it's just a kid's show, don't look so deep into it, or it's just a movie, don't look so deep into it.
You can't separate from the fact that it is influencing you, right? It is either influencing you without your awareness, or it is influencing you with your awareness, right?
It's constantly the way you respond to those things is a message of some sort, right? So, I find this very problematic movie hilarious. Is there anything inherently wrong with that? Like, no. But you should be asking yourself
Why is that funny?
Why is that funny to you?
Yeah.
And processing that, right?
Yeah.
And so whether it's a kid's show or The Hangover or whatever it is supposed to be,
Yeah.
you are responding to it in real time in your life in front of others, and so that means something. Like that
It sure does.
That means something. The way we process art has the power of meaning, and so what we do with what we learn with these things is important. So if you're like, I really latched onto that moment from that show because it made me feel joyful. How do we replicate those moments in other people's lives outside of that show?
Absolutely.
Right? So,
well, I think just to talk about me more for a minute, I think this focus on
we haven't talked about you enough today, so
Yeah.
let's talk more about the way you're feeling.
But I think this intention with my body really focuses in on what you're talking about, right? It's helping me become more aware of my response to these things that I'm consuming, right? Like when it goes back to this memory package of when I play those games that I associated with positive things when I was younger. It's not that I need to go and replicate everything that happened in Pokemon. It's that I need to be aware that I'm doing this because my body and my wholeness, myself, is craving that positive memory and what it felt like to be in that positive place. And what that tells me is like, oh, man, I wonder if there are other ways to get that, or so that I don't have to. I go into shutdown mode.
Am I missing this right now elsewhere?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's just you can consume for fun, and that can be it, and that is perfect. That is awesome, and I think that there's a lot of beauty in paying attention as well. So again, that was all about me. What about did you? What are you doing? What is your takeaway? What's your intention?
Yeah, I think it really is. I think, I do consume a lot of media. I like doing it. I enjoy the learning that I have from it. I enjoy the aspect. I enjoy the connection pieces that I get to feel with others, to talking about that media later, or finding that connection of a stranger who also likes what you like. Those things are, so I appreciate that. And so I think it is for me, it is having awareness of what those things are, how they're showing up in my life and the way that I respond to them. But I think what I like to do is my goal for each piece of media is to take one thing tactical out of that I can do in my life outside of that, right? So, and if that's just like, hey, I really enjoyed how this person enjoyed going on a walk in the story, I'm going to go on a walk.
Yep.
And that's it. And that's my little piece. Or sometimes it's processing it, right? Sometimes it is, I'm going to use this as a connection piece with another person to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all it's like. And so I don't think these things have to be hard, but it is, what is the role that this is playing outside of our lives, and just having an awareness of that. And I think that's kind of my intention.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So for our last thing, gratitude.
Sure.
You've consumed a lot of media.
Yes.
Right? So you have to pick one character out of all of the things that you've consumed to be grateful for. And I'm going to do the same.
Oh my goodness.
And that's a big ask. There's a lot going on. But I would love to hear about some character that has brought something to you that you're grateful for, whether it's a main character or a side character in one of the episodes of one of the hundreds of things that you've watched, or a tiny little scribble on a page from a side character in that comic, or I want us to kind of invite that into our lives. So I ask you, who's a character that you're grateful for?
The character I'm going to choose is Janine Teagues from Abbott Elementary. She is played by Quinta Bronson, and she is a bright, bubbly, brand new teacher at this school, and is always wanting to make the best for her students. And I appreciate that enthusiasm and that love for supporting others. But she also continues to learn and continues to put herself in a space where she is hoping to learn or allows herself to learn from others. And I really, I marvel at that a little bit. I really love the feeling of someone who's able to recognize when I maybe crossed my own boundaries, or I didn't have the capacity to do this thing, and allows themselves to learn from others and be helped by others. And that is something that I think Janine Teagues does in that show very well. And so that's my gratitude.
I love it.
What about you?
Yeah. I'm going to return to Heartstopper. I'm going to pick Nick Nelson, and he's portrayed by Kit Connor, and is one of the main characters of the show. And there's just so many horrible ways that Nick could have reacted in the show. Just so many different instances that there's just so much. I love that he does, like, there's just the integrity. There's so much integrity, and there's so much doing
a lot of
the right
integrity
thing,
in that character.
Right? There's just so much going on that
very
makes me
Aang-like sometimes.
Yeah,
like very much
stands up to bullies,
and
stands up to people that deserve to be stood up to, and is like talks to his mom, and is like going and like being vulnerable and living in this space that is just really lovely.
How in the world they got Olivia Colman to be in that show is incredible. She is an Oscar-winning actress who is very talented.
And she's a super side character.
And she was in the show, and I was just like, when I saw her, I was like, what?
Yeah.
How?
But I found Nick to be incredible. What a beautiful personality. So I'm grateful for a lot of things that Nick has done for us by being that character, and grateful for Kit Connor for doing a fabulous job being Nick.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, y'all, that's our show for today. New Korra content, Season 3 of Korra, coming to you so soon.
Some would say the best season of Korra.
Some would say. I love Season 3.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but a lot of people say it is their favorite.
It is close. It might be my favorite season of Korra. After rewatching 2's
very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
So,
2,
to those who quote that season as the reason the show is terrible, I disagree.
Yeah. Yes.
But yes, I think season 3 is the peak of Korra. I think it a little bit of a valley after season 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think season 4 is my least favorite season, maybe.
Really?
That's recency bias.
No, see, I love season 4.
We'll get there. There are aspects of it.
I think people don't like season 4 the same reason people don't like book 5 of Harry Potter. It's because the main character is in the middle of a post-traumatic stress.
No, that's not what bothers me about book 5 of Harry Potter. To me, it's because it's boring.
No. Well, anyway.
Order of the Phoenix, very boring.
You're wrong.
The prophecy is useless.
You're wrong.
The plot devices don't make sense.
This is not about that. This has been another episode of Bending Not Breaking.
The worst version of Sirius Black.
No. What are you? You're just antagonizing me. Yeah. Okay. He's laughing now, y'all. Okay.
It's not a good. It's.
We are so excited
That
to
is
dive
book.
into
That's
Korra
gotta be what,
season
book?
3.
Out of the 7 books, that's the 6th best book, maybe?
And with that in mind, we are grateful for our listeners again.
Chamber of Secrets is the worst.
Grateful to Noah Blanchard for producing the podcast.
Order of the Phoenix.
Really grateful to Max Gongaware for being a part of this project for a long time, even though he's no longer with us.
I wonder if Goblet of Fire is
And
up there as
I'm
number
really
1.
also grateful to all of our patrons. So thank you all. We're grateful for you. Grateful to our listeners. Grateful to everybody who will be a listener.
Bottom tier Harry Potter.
And we're hopeful that you continue to listen after Sunshine interrupted me this entire time.
I would put the Harry Potter play over
So with
Order
that
of
in
the
mind,
Phoenix.
this has been another episode of Bending Not
Cursed
Breaking.
Child is better than Order of the
This
Phoenix.
has been Pruitt.
And this is Sunshine Mayfield.
Until next time, be well and do good.
Thank you for listening. But seriously, I think Cursed Child is better than
worst.
Order of...
You are so bad.
I liked Cursed Child as a story itself.
You think there are plot holes in Order of the Phoenix, but not the Cursed Child?
It's less boring.
It is. I can't have this conversation with you.
Yeah. All right, goodbye.